Let's start this section by building a login form. So in the components folder, let's add a new file, login form.jsx. On the top, we import React and create a component class called login form. We don't need the state for now, so let's delete that. In the render method, let's just return an h1 login. Now let's register a new route in app.js. So open up app.js. Here I'm going to duplicate our first route. Okay. Change the path to /login and the component to login form. Note that my auto import plugin imported this login form on the top, but I would like to move it up so it's close to the other components. This way our code is clean and consistent. So we import all these components and finally we import any style sheets. Okay. Next, we need to add a link to our navigation bar. So let's go to navbar.jsx. Here I'm going to duplicate the last link, change the label to login and the toAttribute to /login. Let's test the application up to this point. So here we have a login link, click our login page, beautiful. Now we're ready to build a Bootstrap form. Here on Bootstrap website, let's look at the markup we need to create a form. So we have the form element. Inside the form, we have a div with the class form-group. With this div, we group a label and the corresponding input field. So you can see inside this div, we have a label and an input field. We also have some text that is for giving the user a hint like this. Now note that each label has a for attribute, and the value of this attribute is the ID of a given input field. For example, here, this label is referencing this input field. With this, when the user clicks on a label, the referenced input field automatically gets focus. Also note that our input fields have this class, form-control. Now back in our login form component, first we need to wrap this h1 with a div. Let me show you a cool trick. So I've selected this text and I'm going to press Shift, Command, and P on Mac or Shift, Control, P on Windows. This opens up the command palette. On the top, search for wrap with abbreviation. Enter. Now type the name of the tag you want to use to surround the selected text. For example, a div. See, now this text is surrounded with a div. We can also do Zen coding here. For example, we can say we want a div with the class container. And as you can see, that is reflected in JSX using the proper attribute, class name. Now we don't need this attribute, so let's delete that. All right, we have a div. Now we need a form. Inside this form, we need a div with the class form-group. Inside this div, we need a label. And next to that, we need an input with the class form-control. We need two input fields. So I'm going to select this div with the class form-group and all its children. Now I'm going to put this expression in parentheses and then multiply it by 2. Tab, boom. We don't need the action attribute, so let's delete that. Next, we need to set our labels. The first one is username and the second one is password. Save the changes. So this is what we have built. The next thing we need to assign is the for attribute. Note that because for is a reserved keyword in JavaScript, the name of this attribute is HTML form. For the same reason that here we cannot call this attribute class, because class is a reserved keyword, so we use class name. Now let me show you another cool trick. Here I'm going to assign this input field an ID. So ID, we set it to an empty string for now. Now whatever I type here, I have to copy and then paste it here. That is boring. Let me show you a better way. So I put the cursor right here. Now I'm holding down the Alt key and click right here. Now we have multiple cursors, so we can type a new ID like username. Beautiful. One more time, for the second input field, I'm going to set the ID attribute, put the cursor here one more time, and type a new ID like password. Done. And finally, we need a submit button. So a button with two classes, btn and btn-primary. We call it login. Save the changes, and this is what we get.